Welcome to episode 223 of the XS Noize Podcast, your go-to destination for deep dive conversations with the most compelling voices in music. I'm your host, Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. If you missed our last episode, I had a brilliant chat with St. Leonard about his new album, The Golden Hour. Today's guest is someone who approaches songwriting like a filmmaker frames a scene, rich in detail, wide in scope, and emotionally resonant. Tom Hickox is about to release his third album, The Orchestra of Stories, a sweeping cinematic journey through myth, memory, history, and heart. In this episode, we dig into the emotional core of the record, explore the real-life stories behind the songs, and cover everything from family history to Fidel Castro. This is Tom Hickox on the XS Noize Podcast. Hi, Tom. Welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
Thank you, Mark. It was a pleasure to be with you.
It's great to have you on, Tom. Really love the album. So let's start at the beginning. When did the idea for the Orchestra of Stories first begin? When did it take shape?
I suppose immediately after your last album is released, that's the point at which you start thinking about what's going to come next, and more and more so as I've got into my career as a songwriter, I've become more and more interested in storytelling as being a major part of it, and not least because it's an aspect of my live shows that people have seemed to have really connected with. And so there was a bit of extra focus, I think, about searching for that kind of really strong storytelling subject matter to include on this album. And reasonably early on in the writing process, I'd found two or three really strong stories I thought that I wanted to write about and wanted to include. And then the kind of development of the production of the record, it became clear to me that I wanted to produce this record myself. My first two albums I co-produced with other people, both of which were very, very good experiences with Colin Elliott and Chris Hill. But this, I knew I wanted to do myself. And as I was kind of developing the arrangements and the orchestrations, they were just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so this idea of, okay, somehow I've got to get into a room with an orchestra, or at least a bloody big chunk of an orchestra. And so I had this working title of The Orchestra of Stories for ages and ages, and it just stuck because it fits. And I thought about various other titles, but they just didn't work as well. And so that's where we've landed.
Yeah, the album feels much more expansive in scope, and grander in sound, and very cinematic storytelling. Your background in composition really shines through. How did that training shape the overall sound?
It's a really good question, that, because I think at times when I was a bit younger, I felt like I needed to keep those two aspects of my work sort of separate. And that's mad, really, because, I am just one musician. And so it was a bit of a light bulb moment, really, when I thought, okay, I'm going to kind of bring these two things together and see what happens. Let's see if it works. And is it possible to kind of build these big cinematic compositions around my kind of form of songwriting? And I wasn't sure, I didn't really know if it would work, honestly, Mark. And I think it has, and I'm really, really pleased with the results. But yeah, I've been working as a composer for years now, and it feels only natural now that those two things kind of come together, and this is the result.
What's your day-to-day songwriting process look like? Are you structured, or do you follow inspiration as it comes?
Yeah, I'm structured up to the point that I take myself to work. So I have a small studio near home, and I work a kind of 9 to 5 day, or give or take, and that helps insofar as if I'm at a piano or I'm in my workspace, then I've got a chance of writing something that's decent. And that's the sort of that's the creative discipline. I don't follow a set pattern for writing songs. So what I'm always looking for is the first really good idea, and that can be a lyric, that can be just a theme or a story of a song, but it can also be a melody, it can also be a chord progression, something that's really good musically. The hard thing about songwriting or about any creative endeavor is you're just looking for that first spark, and then once you've got that first spark, that's when you know the mind can run away. So it's not always the same, but the process of looking for that first idea is ongoing, and that's relentless, and that happens 24 hours a day. Always got my antennae open for things that I'm interested in.
Let's talk a bit about the musical DNA of the record. Scott Walker seems like a touchstone. Was his work an influence on the album?
Yes, yes, definitely. He is a huge influence on my work, and I would say more so as I've got older. I love that sound world. I love his individualism as an artist. Again, his choice of subject matter, and that putting that sort of filmic orchestral sound at the absolute forefront of his music is something that I adore. So yes, Scott Walker undoubtedly a big influence on me, and getting more so actually. I mean, I listening slightly obsessively even still. He's an absolute giant of an artist.
Do you think of your songs as cinematic, almost like you're directing scenes through music?
Oh, that's a lovely thing to think. I think it's just a massively enjoyable thing to do is to paint musically to match or complement the sort of color within the idea of the song, the lyrics and the theme, and it's so much fun as well to try and create this musical world that reflects the world that you're writing about, and that will in fact I'm enjoying that more than ever, that process, and having that sense of freedom just to go wherever you feel you need to go. It's just a glorious way of spending your time, actually, quite apart from making a living. It's just it's just my passion, I suppose.
And because of that, are you creating the music for yourself first and foremost, or are you writing the music with a listener in mind?
No, I would say it's entirely for myself, because I think if you write music that you really believe in and that you can stand behind in every aspect, then I think you've got a chance of other people enjoying it and of other people understanding it and caring about it. I think if you try to sort of second guess what people may or may not like, or is there some sort of formula that we need to kind of hit upon to achieve success, I don't think I'd be very good at it anyway. I mean, I know some people are very skilled at that, but that I don't think is would be a healthy thing for me. I think what is hopefully connecting about this record is that it's a very personal reflection of my taste, I think. So it's honest. It's sincere.
How do experiences like fatherhood and loss shape the emotional landscape of the record?
Well, truthfully, not that much, because most of it was written before I became a dad and before I lost my mum and my stepmom. And I lost my dad quite a while ago now. So, and I think that has been a present factor in some of my writing since then. But these songs are not directly influenced by those things, I would say. So, and it may well be the case that my next album actually has a bit more of that rawness, possibly of of the circle of life. But yes, it's the sort of funny timing of albums is that, those things have happened to me recently, but the songs were written before that.
A lot of the songs are very narrative and based on things that have happened and people that have happened and the characters. When writing a narrative song, how does the story evolve from the initial idea to a finished piece?
Well, yeah, I think you're looking for a way to make something interesting. So, what's usually where's the human angle? Where's the aspect of it that is relatable? So, for example, on my first album, there's a song called "The Lisbon Maru," which takes a kind of gigantic wartime tragedy, but that in itself is a great and important story. But I'm not really in the business of giving history lessons, I suppose. And so my way in there was to tell the story of someone who had an experience of the tragedy, but for whom people didn't believe. So it was really about the relationship between one person and the community around him, and using the Lisbon Maru story as a vehicle to get into that. So that I suppose on this album, the opening track, for example, the Clairvoyant, that song is based around a true story of someone getting fleeced by a fraudulent psychic because the psychic claimed that she could make contact with this man's dead wife, his late wife, and so she kind of squeezed his entire life savings out of him, but by saying, "I just need a little more money," every time to make a little bit more contact with his wife. That song is the way it's presented is the words of the clairvoyant used to con this poor man out of his life savings. So it's all quite bleak, but it's the that was the way in there, for example.
Yeah, it's a great song. Your songs often feel like self-contained worlds,
That is something I enjoy hugely, is creating these little short story, little kind of miniatures in 3 or 4 minutes, creating these little worlds and making that a kind of cohesive thing in words and music. That's my passion, for sure.
Yeah, let's talk about some more of the songs. Chalk Giants, it feels like a mythic British road song. What inspired it?
Well, it is exactly that, a mythic British road song. I've always loved the romance of the American dream and the great American road myth, and that's idea that the journey to get somewhere is or can be as rewarding as the destination at the end. So just it's a very beautiful sort of philosophy, and I thought it would be interesting to write about that. But to kind of transport it into a kind of very overtly, almost kind of cliched British or British and Irish, even kind of pastoral imagery. And so it became a song about searching for meaning in life, using that kind of sense of place, and the idea of the great American road myth transported over here.
Yeah, I enjoyed the video of yourself in the car, and it was very emotional. You got very emotional in the video.
Yeah. Well, it was a full-on meltdown. Yeah, yeah. That was just I filmed that with a director friend of mine who's a very good friend. It was just the two of us, and we just had this idea that here's a man trying to get from A to B, and his means of getting there is no longer working. The car's broken down, and so this idea of, okay, we're just going to get out and run, and then we turn around and the car explodes. That's the it's a very, very simple idea, but it's a short song. You can't do very much in 2.5 minutes. So it was a fun one to make.
Now, I hope I'm pronouncing this right. You've worked with the Shoemaker Orchestra before?
Yeah, Shoemaker.
Yes. What was that collaboration like, and what did they bring to your music?
So I first worked with them when we got when the BBC did a culture in quarantine series at the beginning of lockdown in 2020, and so I wrote a song for that with them, and it was just really rewarding and beautiful experience. First and foremost, they're top draw musicians, so you know, as a musician, you always want to work with great players and great people, and people who bring really good energy to your projects and to your sessions. So it was a very natural thing for me to ask them if they had an interest in doing strings on this album, and thankfully they were up for it. So that was, yeah, I mean, I feel very, very lucky to have established that relationship with them, and I obviously hope that we can work together some more in the future, because they're just so good, you know. And as a composer and writer, you know, you hear things in your head, and they brought a level of just class really to it, to the whole album, which has elevated it to another level for sure.
How do you approach turning historical events like the Castro plot in the failed assassination of Fidel Castro into something emotionally resonant?
I suppose, again, you're just looking for that. You're just looking for that personal, human angle that we can all relate to, I suppose. And so that song is a love song. It's a love song about, although the context is, you know, a CIA spy going in to assassinate Fidel Castro and then being seduced by him. At the heart of it, it is a love song between a man and a woman, and the sort of intensity of that experience, of that seduction, showing what that can do to all of us. And so that's the resonance. I think that's what it boils down to. It's just that it's set in very, very unusual circumstances. I mean, I don't know, I probably shouldn't be kind of romanticizing and glamorizing certain aspects of history, but there is something undeniably romantic about just the haplessness of the CIA, apart from anything else. I mean, they tried to kill him 70 times or 71 times, and he dodged it, you know, in all these myriad of different ways. And the fact that, you know, they sent in this amazing woman, Marita Lorenz, as a honey trap, and they ended up having a relationship together instead is extraordinary.
It's a great song. It's probably one of my favorites on the album. Roy and Dave, it draws from your own family history. What was it like to write something so personal?
Great fun, honestly. Great fun. I mean, so if just to give background to the listeners, so Roy and Eve, it sounds like it's a very sort of boring couple from somewhere, but Eve was the name of my grandmother, Eve Sheldon Williams. She was a painter and lived a very bohemian and kind of hand-to-mouth existence with just she and my mum. And she bought a painting by another painter of her contemporary, a guy called Roy Turner Durrant, and she wrote to him after she bought it to say, thank you, I'm really, really happy with this, and I'm really thankful that you've done it. And he wrote back to her to thank her for the letter, and he enclosed in it another little painting, another little sketch. And so because she was a great correspondent, she wrote back again to say, oh, you didn't have to send that, but thank you so much again. That was, you know, really kind and beautiful. And then he wrote back again and enclosed another little painting and sketch. And that started this correspondence between them that lasted 25, 30 years. And we've got all the letters that he wrote to her. And in every single one, he enclosed another little piece of artwork, a drawing, a sketch, a painting. And it became clear, is, you know, totally apparent that he'd become quite obsessed with her and was treating her as an object of fantasy and of you know, definitely of sexual desire. And they never met. So it was this amazing sort of affair of correspondence. And he was a married man, he had a family, and he was obviously getting his kicks, you know, through these kind of imagined conversations with my grandmother. It's an amazing story, one I've had in the back of my mind for a long time to try and write about, and eventually I thought that the most interesting way in was to make it a song about obsession and about that sort of imagined Venus figure, and so ultimately I wrote it from his point of view about her, and of course that's fun as well because she's my grandmother. It's kind of ridiculous, but yeah, a great story. And she was a hell of a character, my grandmother. I think she would have enjoyed the fact that I've written a song about her.
What drew you to the Port Quinn disaster? How did it become a metaphor for more modern concerns?
Well, Port Quinn, first of all, it's just somewhere that I've known all my life. It's a part of the world in Cornwall that I love and adore. And it was only relatively recently that I found out the history of this little place. It's a small fishing village for those that don't know it. And it's an abandoned fishing village. And the reason it is abandoned is that at some point in the 19th century, all the men of the village went out to sea to fish, and they all died in a single storm, one massive storm, a very, very brutal tragedy. And so the women of the village were left with this enormous existential question of what they should do next. Would they stay and make a go of it there themselves with them and the kids, or would they just abandon the village and go elsewhere? And what they ultimately did was that. I think that was probably the only choice. But they were taken in by one of the nearest communities, another village called Port Isaac, and they set up home there. They were welcomed into that community. So it's a song about that whole story, and you can just enjoy it on that level if you want. When I was writing it, it just struck me that there was a parallel there between how we treat refugees in this country and the choices that we have when taking in people who have had experienced something in life that has kind of irreversibly changed the direction of their life. That means they're no longer able to live in their own home. And I suppose it's our choice as to where we choose to draw the boundary, I suppose, of who we accept and where we accept people from. And I don't pretend to have answers to these questions. But these are the thoughts that are posed, I suppose, when you're thinking about them.
You cover the whole of the moon by the Waterboys. What drew you to that song, and what did you want from your version to reveal?
Yeah, it's a song I really love. I think it's the energy of the performance and the lyrical content, in particular, the combination of those two things, the kind of sheer sort of wild joy of it that I've always loved. And I wasn't sure that from the beginning that I wanted to have it on the album. I knew I wanted to have a go at recording a version of this song. And once we'd done it, it just felt like it sat really well amongst the other songs. And so that's why we decided to include it. It just felt like it sat there and it felt like it worked. And I think, I mean, it's sufficiently different, I think, from the original. I mean, massively so in terms of arrangement, that I think it's worth having its place in the sun. And it was written and created with a lot of love for it. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Mike Scott's stuff, full stop. But that really is an iconic song.
Yeah, and as you said, it really sits well within the album. It was only really when you started singing the lyrics that I realised exactly what it was because of the different arrangements.
Yeah,
and I really enjoyed it for that.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think there's always. It's the first time I've ever included a cover on an album, and you want people to hear that it was made with the absolute reverence and love for the original, and for it but for it also to sit amongst your own stuff and for it to feel like it belongs. So that's actually quite a tricky challenge to achieve both those things, I think.
There's incredible emotional weight in many of your songs, but do you ever write something just for fun or even to amuse yourself?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's maybe odd to hear, but I mean, the reason I do write is because I think it's fun and enjoyable. It's just that what comes out is doesn't sound like I've written it for fun, but always I write because I enjoy writing, and I would stop the moment I found it not to be enjoyable, or you would just wouldn't come up with anything that's any good. I'm obviously drawn to subject matter. I think that can be quite dark, but that's partly because that's the music that speaks to me, and the artists that I really love, the Nick Caves and the Scott Walkers and the Tom Waitses and the Randy Newmans and PJ Harveys of this world. I think we have half an eye, or a bit more than half an eye, on the darker side of the moon, and but it's in those kind of dark corners that I think you can find total beauty and magic, and that's where I look.
You've got some very special shows on the horizon. You're performing a one-off orchestral show at King's Place in London on 9th of May, followed by a UK tour in September. So what can fans expect from the live experience?
Well, first and foremost, a bit of storytelling, and hopefully a few laughs as well. I like to, I'm a great believer in shows should be entertaining, and that is during and between the songs. As you say, the King's Place gig in May will feature. I mean, there's going to be quite a lot of us on stage, which will be really fun. My biggest ever show. And yes, songs old and new. I think I haven't quite settled on the set list, but I think it's going to be a nice balance between all three albums, and we'll be slightly rearranging some of the earlier stuff to include some of the orchestral color of this. So that will be really fun as well. And then, touring into the autumn. I mean, we've announced just dates in England, Wales, and Scotland, but very much hoping to cross the Irish Sea and indeed get across into Europe as well. That's very much on the horizon.
Is there one particular song you're most excited to perform live from the new album?
Oh, that's a good question. I think maybe the Shoemaker is a song that I really love, and that's a song that I know has really connected with people. That and Chalk Giants of the four that have been released. So he's got really kind of beautiful trumpet solo on it as well, and I'm really looking forward to. I've got the most amazing trumpeter on the gig in May in London, and I can't wait to hear him play that.
The album feels like a creative turning point. Where do you see yourself heading next, artistically?
Yeah, you know what? That's such a great question. I've got a bunch of songs written, and I'm just at that moment of having to make that choice, actually, and truthfully, I haven't got there yet, because I think there's always a temptation as an artist to kind of take a big left turn after every album and to kind of search for pastures new, but also I really love where we've got to with this album, with how it feels, with how it kind of sits with my voice, I suppose. And as I get into making the next album, that will start this summer, that's a little journey I've got to go on, and I honestly don't know the answer to that question just now.
If someone's discovering your music for the first time, what 5 songs would you recommend they start with to really understand your work?
Very good question. From all of my music.
From everything, yeah.
Okay. Well, I would say I would point them in the direction of Chalk Giants from this album, because I think it's a really lovely, accessible starting point, musically and thematically. I'd get them to listen to maybe Man on the High Road from this album as well, because I think that is the kind of biggest sounding arrangement on the whole album. That's everything at kind of max power. And then I might get them to listen to a song like "The Pretty Pride of Russia" on my first album, which is again like a really good example of my sort of early forays into storytelling and inhabiting another character. And melodically is one I've always really loved. And then perhaps "The Plough" from my last album, which is again a very simple song, just me and an acoustic guitar. And then why don't we chuck in I'll chuck in "Let Me Be Your Lover" from my first album, because that's always been a huge favorite with everyone.
Good choices. Good choices.
Oh, well.
I'm sure it's hard to pick five.
Yeah, it was a bit like choosing your favorite children, but it's sometimes you gotta do it.
I like to ask my guests the following questions. Songs often become the soundtrack to your memories. What song or album brings back the best memories for you?
Yeah, music is so evocative, isn't it? I'm gonna go with Leonard Cohen, "Chelsea Hotel." That's a song I first heard when I was probably 15 or 16, and I couldn't really believe that there was someone making music that sounded like that. And I know Leonard Cohen is not everyone's cup of tea, but it resonated hugely with me because it felt like this. He got a deep voice. My voice was obviously broken by that point, and I thought, oh, that's someone who I could almost sound something like that. And then just this intensity of the poetry and the delivery, I just fell in love, absolutely fell in love. And so that when I think about the sort of end of my school years, when I was sort of hoovering up new artists and old and new, whether that was, Elliott Smith as well, I would say a very kind of evocative, nostalgic thing for me is listening to Elliott Smith, because I think about what it is to be 17 again. And yeah, Leonard Cohen as well, for sure. Jeff Buckley, yeah, that's the very intense songwriting.
What are you listening to right now? Anything that might surprise your fans?
I don't know if there's anything that would surprise my fans massively. I mean, I would not pass up the chance to rave a little bit about my friend Anna B. Savage, who I think is just a really special artist, doing so well. And she is like the kind of a kind of beautiful love child of Joni Mitchell and Elliott Smith, and she's doing really well. Lives in Donegal, actually, not that far from you, Mark. So yeah, if there's anyone out there that doesn't know Anna's work, I would massively recommend it.
Well, I am one of them, and I will check her out, definitely.
Yeah, no, she's special.
Looking back over your musical journey, if you could relive one moment, what would it be?
I was lucky enough to get to play on Later with Jules Holland 10 years ago now, actually. And that was pretty special. It was one of those things that, maybe kind of music TV now is, I don't know, a 15-year-old budding singer-songwriter now probably doesn't grow up thinking that one of their dreams in life is to play on Later with Jules, but that was it. That was the case for me. And to be able to get to do that show with a really amazing lineup. Well, it was with Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings, with Coldplay, with the Black Keys and Damon Albarn. It was. I have to admit, I was pinching myself throughout, and yeah, that was a special day, and I'm very, very grateful to have had the opportunity to have done that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Back in the day, bands and artists, their aspirations was to be on top of the pops, but now it no longer exists. But Jules Holland is where everybody wants to get on now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's the last bit of music telly in the UK, really. Other than the odd, I don't know, well, you go and play on like Andrew Marr or something, But I mean, it's not quite the same. It's not quite the same thing.
Or cooking programs.
Yeah, or cooking, exactly. Yeah, you've got to take these opportunities where they arise. There's something special about going on a show where the focus is the music, and that's the be all and end all, and to get. I mean, I have to say, it was wonderful meeting all those people. But I mean, to meet Sharon Jones was very, very special, and I treasure that now, actually, because she was just an incredible musician. Her band as well, just knockout, absolutely knockout.
Well, Tom, that's me finished. Is there anything you would like to mention before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. Thanks for the interest, and I hope everyone really loves the album.
Thanks so much. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you. Congratulations again on the album, Orchestra of Stories, and best of luck with the shows and everything ahead. And hopefully see you sometime in Northern Ireland.
Yeah. We'll hopefully see you in Belfast. Not before too long.